Hello team and welcome back to Sunday Vibes. We're in the pub, we're in the Rookery on Clapham Common. I'm joined by Zachary Jellab, by Patrick Van Straten. It's a very fetching green number. How are you?
Cheers.
Today?
I'm good, thank you. Oh, yeah, I don't know what I'm saying.
Zach, how you doing? This the whole time. Ken can't say actually. Free branding.
Have you not heard of Kenzo?
Yeah, but we can't give them free branding.
Yeah, we can. Zach's wearing a lovely number today from Weekday.
Thank you.
Buy it from any Weekday shop near you. There aren't actually that many. You have to get it online.
You were actually delighted. I feel like today you've earmarked as the day that you're going to become like Winter Jellab.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that was actually yesterday. That was yesterday.
Okay.
That was yesterday.
Winter
but obviously,
Jellab.
the first time you've seen me, it was today on Friday. Yeah. No, Winter Jellab's now out. I bought a couple of winter wardrobe
He's
stuff.
out.
Yeah, he's out.
He's out
and
of the
about.
Okay.
The winter Zach is here.
We should probably start the show, shouldn't we? We should probably talk about football.
Probably.
That is what we're here for. The main topic today, it comes from Rashford 10 FC, so you could probably guess the nature of it. Should Manchester United sack Ollie? Now, we've put this off as long as possible, but it's been unavoidable because the terrible form has just continued, and obviously they have an apocalyptic run of games coming up. I feel like this is the third or fourth time we've fixed Manchester United on the show. Which club have
And
we...
yet they remain.
Which club have we fixed the most, do you think, in the history?
United must be United.
Arsenal's
Probably
up there.
United
Arsenal's
and Arsenal.
up there, yeah.
They've been consistently the worst over the last couple of years.
And then Barcelona. That is that is like
There's no fix there. Like they're just bankruptcy.
Sunday Vibes has been a good looking glass for who's just been terrible in the last 4 or 5 years.
Sorry, can you tell me what the run is then? You said they've got a terrible
Okay.
run coming up. I know they've got Liverpool.
Yes.
Or today. Well, when the video
Lucked that win against Atalanta. I didn't not necessarily lucked it, but dug themselves out of a horrible hole. So
De Gea was great as well for them in that game.
So what's coming up?
So they've got Liverpool, then Tottenham, then Atalanta again, and then Manchester City, and then they have a slight reprieve in Watford and Villarreal, or the Villarreal boss.
Those are the games they'll lose
at Old Trafford, and then once more it becomes very difficult. They have Chelsea and Arsenal respectively. Quite favourable late December right through to March. But so I imagine if Ollie can survive this period, he'll be fine for the rest of the season. But I suppose the big topic on everyone's lips is, will those run of games, if they don't go his way, actually cost him in any significant way? Is he going to get the chop?
I mean, he's gone through periods like this and always seems to win those games.
Well, you said at the start of the show, before we started filming, that they always start badly under Ollie. That's been the case for 3 seasons in a row now.
Yeah, every single season he seems to start poorly and then suddenly gets going. And this could be that run where maybe he does beat Liverpool, maybe he does beat a couple of those teams, City, and then the questions are gone again. And we're talking about Ollie being, he's doing okay, he's getting these wins. But I think Pat's quite right as well. Maybe those games when he plays Villarreal, which he did struggle against, and was it Watford? Did you say? Those are maybe the ones that he does lose. I think it's this thing with. I feel like we're consistently going to be saying this with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, that every start of the season he starts poorly, especially when all the other three, in this case Chelsea, Liverpool, Manchester City, have started so well and been great and obviously gone
more
so far
forgiving
ahead.
last season, wasn't it? Because
Exactly.
they didn't start great either.
Precisely, so it looks a lot worse. And then when you've spent the money or brought in the players that they've brought in this summer, there's a lot more pressure on you to do better. And so that's why when, I guess, Cristiano Ronaldo is getting you out of a hole against Atalanta, who, it has to be said as well, aren't a bad side, but when you're at home and you're 2-0 down to them, when Ronaldo's doing that for you, I guess that's when the questions come out. And you obviously we're looking at those pundits afterwards, and you have Paul Scholes being like, this shouldn't be happening to Manchester United, and yeah. But I mean, the point he's making, I think, is valid. Where it's like, when in the position that they're in, where they've spent the money, they've brought in these stars, I guess more can be expected.
Yeah.
And especially during these games as well, where you're watching United play this football and the football isn't good. It's not like they're just conceding unlucky goals or the defence, like the game against Leicester, where you've got 5 men defending, 5 men attacking, and there's just no cohesion between who's doing the pressing and what's happening. I think the questions about Ollie are valid, to be quite honest, especially when guys like Antonio Conte are out there on the market and
dangling a carrot for them there.
Exactly.
We're going to discuss Antonio Conte later, and of course McCubbin wrote a very good explained on Antonio Conte at Manchester United, if that was to happen in theory. I mean, I feel like that Atalanta game that you mentioned, quite emblematic of Ollie's whole tenure at Manchester United. Booed off at half-time, rapturous applause at full-time when they had to do more than was necessary to overcome the first 45 minutes. Zach also touched upon the money spent there. I think that's something that's probably being levelled at him this season that hasn't been in seasons gone by, despite spending 80 million on Maguire. I think his his net spend now is around 300 mil. So in the past 3 windows, 400 spent, 100 has gone out. Have actually Manchester United fans been quite reasonable with him so far? And is it okay to now expect more, whereas in the first 18 months, you could have passed off going through the motions a bit more convincingly?
Well, I mean, to be honest, the first thing to say on the money thing is I don't think that it's something the board necessarily is considering. Like, when they are spending that money, I don't think they're necessarily spending it thinking, right, we have to win a Premier League title. I think they don't. I really don't think they care that much. Like, if United are in the Champions League and making money and like driving commercial revenue, and they get players in who drive commercial revenue, then I don't think they're that bothered about how much money they spend and how much success they get for it. Like, the fact that they've spent so much money to keep hold of Pogba all these years, despite the fact that Pogba kind of unbalances the side in lots of ways, I think is an indication that they care far more about commercial revenue than they care about success on the field. I don't know if United fans have been reasonable. Like, I think they've just kind of been weaving around all over the place when it comes to Solskjaer. Like, there's a period where they thought he was great. Every season there's a period where they all hate him and want him to go. Then they go on a run. Like, I literally never know when I see Joe what mode he's in with Ollie, whether he's in like, get Ollie out of my club, or Ollie's the best manager in the world, he's gonna do everyone, he's gonna do everyone, he's gonna beat Pep again, like all that. I literally have no idea. So
do you think this season marks a little bit of a divergence, a bit of a deviation, by judging on the fact they gave Ronaldo a £400,000 a week deal? Because I agree. Before, I think as long as Ollie's got them Champions League football, the board, okay, this is a money-making vehicle. We're not particularly that hung up on winning the Premier League. Roman Abramovich every 2 or 3 years is like, no, actually, I really want to win something this year.
Yeah, exactly.
But the wages at United, like £240 million, according to Spotrac. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's like £80 million more than the Manchester City per annum now. Has this window suggested a change in their tack? Because obviously a lot of bad press with the Super League, the Glazer out movement started to pick up a little bit more momentum again following that. Do they want to win something now, or is it just a PR thing?
I don't think they it's not like they don't want to win something, but I'm not sure it's necessarily a change in tack, because I think that you can factor into the Ronaldo wages the fact that Pogba's wages are going to disappear next summer. That's going to be a big factor. But, this has also been the story under the Glazers, right? Every now and then the supporters get sufficiently pissed off. The Glazers make a big signing, to kind of placate them, and the cycle goes round again. But I think if they really wanted to win something this summer, it doesn't take anyone with any understanding of football even to look at this squad and say they need a proper defensive midfielder. Everyone knows this. We've said it for years. If they really wanted to go and win something this summer and they were like, right, you need to win now, they could have gone and got a defensive midfielder and Ronaldo. But they didn't. They went and got Sancho, which I think was a necessary signing. But I don't know, to me, that is not the win now move entirely. It's just kind of we want to get Ronaldo in because we don't want another team to get Ronaldo in, so we have to go and get him. I think if they really, really were focusing on silverware this season, they should have got a defensive midfielder. Because if anyone looked at that team last year and said the difference between this and the Liverpool and City level is Cristiano Ronaldo, I think that person's an idiot. Cristiano Ronaldo isn't even their best player. So it just doesn't really make sense to me if they are thinking that way. And I can't imagine that they're stupid enough to think that way.
And it's odd now that the necessary signing, the £73 million signing of Jadon Sancho, which we all, fully endorsed, his place in the side is now up for debate after a slow start to the season with what Mason Greenwood playing out on the right and Pogba sometimes deployed on the left. But if McFred plays.
But this was because of Ronaldo, right? You can't pay this guy £400,000 a week, not then play him. Which then, as you said, moves Greenwood, who's been really good actually since maybe one of United's better players since the start of the season. He has to play because he's been in great form. Rashford's now just come back from injury, so he's trying to fit him in as well. It's almost like Ollie is the playing Ultimate Team on FIFA. He's got all these stars and he's trying to figure out how to play them, and then someone like Jadon Sancho, who they've just bought for £74 million, can't even feature.
We spoke about the domino effect, didn't we?
Yes.
With Ronaldo playing at 9 on winners and losers, and that is interesting, that the idea that him playing at 9 can actually unsettle the DM position. And everyone who's watched the last 3 or 4 United games can see out of possession they're practically playing a 4-2-4, and it doesn't matter what 2 central midfielders are playing in there. That is too much ground to cover. You can be, prime Makelele, you're probably not going to get away with that. I just thought I'd have a quick look at the numbers to see what had changed from last season when we thought they were making progress and Ollie was doing sort of a solid job. to this season. And this season, at least at the start of it, it's felt a lot more gung-ho from Ollie, basically. So they're third for shots in the Premier League, only behind Liverpool and Manchester City on 17.3, which is obviously very healthy. But they are conceding the 7th most, a very similar amount to Crystal Palace, in fact. And last season, 4th for expected goals against. Again, that was like, yeah, Ollie's put together a Champions League-worthy defence. Like, well done. But this season, they've conceded 10 goals, and they're yet to play one of the traditional top 6. Expected goals against puts it closer to 12, which would be like in the bottom third of the division. So are they just going for a sticky patch defensively, or does this lend itself to the narrative that Ollie just can't like find a way to fix everything at once? he literally like compartmentalises it, and then to the detriment of something else.
Well, I think they are just very easy to play through at the moment. Like, I mean, when you have Cavani there, Cavani's actually really hard working. And like last season, I thought they had a lot of guys who were like working hard around the front line. Bruno obviously presses like a demon. Rashford really plays for the badge. Like, I don't know. It just seems like, I'm not going to like blame it all on Ronaldo, but I do think that like Ronaldo makes them much easier to play through. And when you see Sancho as well, like the disconnection between those forwards and the way they press, it just means that you're immediately kind of down to 6 guys trying to defend, and that assumes that your midfielders are defensive midfielders who can defend. So maybe you're down to 4 guys who want to defend, and one of those is Luke Shaw, who's actually not really much of a defender. Like, he pretty much plays as an auxiliary attacker a lot of the time. Okay, now we have 3 guys who are defending. You know, like it's gradually one of those things where you're like, it doesn't matter how good those people are. Like you were saying, you know, if you've got Makaleli there in the middle of the park, but he's completely on an island, there's only so much he can do. And it just seems to me like now they just don't have, you know, the defenses. Like what you want in football is like, at worst, you want a sort of weak line of defence, a stronger line of defence, and then a really strong line of defence, right? And in United's case, those first 2 just don't exist, and it's straight into the back line. And so I think that's a bit of a problem for them. But I mean, to go back to the Sancho thing, I think that there's a bit of a problem here as well, in that people are thinking about who's in form and like, oh, Greenwood's in form because he's scoring goals, you know, and you see him like drive with the ball and stuff. But the blend of talent in that front line, I think, means that Sancho absolutely has to play, because they've got too many forwards who are just shooters. Like, all Ronaldo does is shoot. All Cavani really does is shoot. All Rashford does is shoot. All Greenwood does is shoot. These are really strikers, all of those guys. Sancho's the only one behind Bruno who's going to play an attack and is actually going to get on the ball and create. He's going to pass and like do some stuff. Like, the problem that they've got now with United is they've got a bunch of guys who want to score goals, but not that many who are actually going to contribute defensively or create. And so it just seems like now the attack doesn't blend well enough to be really functional offensively, and it certainly doesn't have the right blend of skills to function well defensively. And so I just think that really all the problems stem from that attack. They've got to find a way, essentially, to cover for Ronaldo. Yeah. That's what they need to do.
And I think it will eventually come at the cost of like a bit of Bruno's game, because he's putting up 25 pressures per 90 at the minute, or something absolutely ridiculous, and that is not sustainable across the course of a season. He's going to tire in an even greater manner than he did last campaign if he's expected to do that much running to compensate for Ronaldo. And it's like, you want him in the spaces where he's playing against Atalanta. I mean, I think he had to create like 8 chances on that night, 5 from open play, for them to even get 3 goals in the second half. So he had to have like one of his best creative games, Manchester United, for them to look like a decent creative unit. And yeah, you don't want him like, I don't know, shuttling from side to side, do you, to make up for Ronaldo. Zachary, should we move on to like the manager then?
Go on then.
Because obviously he's been at the club for 3 years. He's undoubtedly sort of improved the culture, the feel-good factor around the club. But are we seeing enough on the pitch to warrant him staying?
For sure. I think with Ole, I would say the best way to describe him is fine. Like, he's not necessarily spectacular at anything, but he's not necessarily terrible at a certain thing either. Like, I think he's absolutely fine. And if Manchester United are looking for a guy that is going to be stable, try and battle for Champions League football, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is okay to do that. I don't necessarily think he's going to be going out there and winning a Champions League or winning a Premier League. He might manage to win an FA Cup or something like that. But then, especially when you compare him to the other 3, where they've got Jurgen Klopp, who's one of the best managers in the world. Pep Guardiola is one of the best managers in the world. Thomas Tuchel, who's come in at Chelsea and changed things completely and made them a very competitive side to play against. With Ole, I just don't see that happening. And also, like, those other three are very tactical managers.
Yeah.
Depending on who they're playing, they'll change their game. A certain player might play due to them playing against Juventus or whatever it be. They can change.
They've got more game plans to lean back on.
Exactly, more game plans.
When I said let's move on to the manager, I actually meant managers. Let me read the favourites out for you to replace him, because I think one of the things he's got going for him at the moment is that there's not a really obvious candidate in the same way that 18 months ago we were sat in the old Sunny Vibes Club going like, Pochettino's free, just employ this guy. Like, honestly, he's perfect for it. So, Jalab, what do you think? So, Brendan Rodgers at 4-1, Conte at 5-1, Pochettino still third favourite at 7-2, and then Zidane is 12-1. There's Gareth Southgate after that, Nagelsmann, Ranić and Blanc, but they seem...
They're just miles away.
Wildly unrealistic.
I mean, Zinedine Zidane would be okay. He doesn't speak English, which I don't think is probably the best idea to bring in for Manchester United right now. That's not to say he couldn't learn English and he can pick it up. But I also think with the way Zinedine Zidane is, again, he isn't. I personally think they need a tactical manager. They need someone. He's very much a man manager, a guy to motivate his players and get them working.
But that's what Ole is, right? So
exactly right. And I think maybe Zidane is just a better version of
right.
that.
Okay.
I don't think bringing Zidane is what I think. They need a change in the kind of the type of manager they have. And so the others, which was Brendan Rodgers.
You had Conte and Poch as the top three.
Yeah, Conte would be great short term. For sure. I think if the board are looking at it and they go, okay, we want to win some sort of major silverware, whether that be, well, probably not the Champions League because Conte's record in Europe isn't amazing, but if they wanted to do a really, really strong league push and try and go all the way for it, I think he'd be great for 2 years. He would cause problems maybe behind the scenes and players may fall out. I'd be very interested to see what happens with the likes of Jadon Sancho, with the likes of Marcus Rashford. Will they be featuring because he'll then go to a back three? Luke Shaw, you'd be thinking playing left wing back, right wing back, maybe Diego Dalot, because Sancho's not going to want to play right wing back, and depending what happens there, I think youth wise might be a bit of a problem, but short-term success they'll have. I feel like with Conte it feels a bit of a guarantee. His track record shows it, to go from Chelsea winning the Premier League, Inter Milan winning Serie A in 2 seasons, but then his track record also shows that every single time after 2 years things go downhill in the 3rd season, whether he just leaves or their season tits up. As for Poch, I think he's great, but I don't think personally that's going to happen with the way he's got right now with Lionel Messi at PSG, Neymar, Mbappe. At least maybe at the end of this season, possibly. Maybe they could stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and see what happens then, and project give him a project that he can look at Manchester United and say, look at all these youngsters, whatever. But I just don't see that happening. And as for Brendan Rodgers, do you
think he's a better manager than Ole?
I do think he's a better manager than Ole.
Agreed.
100%. I just don't know whether Manchester United would hire Brendan Rodgers after Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to take them to that next level.
Because he's not a big enough name.
Yeah.
So from a PR perspective.
Yeah,
so
from a PR
the same reason we
perspective.
sort of malign their recruitment player-wise, like they're not going to go and sign Chouameni.
Precisely.
They're not going to go after Brendan Rodgers.
Precisely, yes.
Even though
I
he'd be
think
an improvement.
he would definitely be an improvement, and I think he would, as I said, he probably would take them to that next level, but from a PR perspective, I just think they wouldn't do it. I just don't think it would be the way they go. And I also think the fans would see Brendan Rodgers come in and be like, what are we doing? Like, we've already had this manager in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They want a big name. They want like a Diego Simeone. They want this guy, like one of the big name managers out there. Even though Brendan Rodgers is great, they want.
He certainly had United's number in the last 4 games. They're beaten against United in 4 games. Sorry, and he's outclassed Ole pretty easily, outmaneuvered him pretty easily. Just to go back to a couple of points Zach raised with Conte. One, because he feels like the most realistic candidate, do we think that he is a good match for the existing skill set of the players? And 2, one thing that fans often don't consider, and you've already mentioned the board here, would the board want to work with someone so combustible when they're not that torn up on winning said Premier League title?
Well, it depends how combustible he is if you have the money that he wants. Historically, Conte's explosions have mostly been about I'm not getting the support I want. They're selling players I don't want to sell. Like, I want to be able to go and buy this player in the market or that player in the market. Well, United can kind of do that. United can spend an awful lot of money each summer without really breaking a sweat. And so in that sense, I think Conte would be quite a good guy for them. I don't think they'd really have that much trouble. Like this summer, if he'd had however much to spend that they spent, like 70 on Sancho, like Varane. I think he'd have been like delighted with that, and they can do that every summer, like no worries. So
yeah, but he would have signed like Zappacosta and not Sancho.
Yeah, but then they'd have probably
Marcus Alonso goes to Manchester United.
But then they'd have been like contenders for every competition they're in, whereas at the moment they're not going to contend for anything.
No.
Does anyone think they're going to win a major trophy this season? Maybe the FA Cup, but that's about it. Like
I mean, they're already out of the EFL Cup, aren't they?
Exactly. So it's just like, what are they going to do? Like, I agree about Brendan Rodgers. I think Brendan Rodgers is I don't actually think he is a great man manager. I think he's quite a sophisticated tactical manager, but I don't think he's good enough that you'd like pay what it takes to get him out of Leicester. Like, I don't think he's going to be that. I actually think Zidane is a much more tactical manager than he was in his first few years at Real Madrid. When he went back to Real Madrid, he was doing much more interesting things with that side. And I think that he's probably like not that far off Rodgers' level, and you can just get him now, and he's got the clout they want. But you're totally right about the language thing. I hadn't considered that at all. And
Ronaldo
that's going to be
his translator.
Well,
Bruno says he wants you to press even more.
But Bruno speaks Italian as well,
language,
right?
Language
so they could
isn't the
speak
end of the
Italian.
world, though. Like, he can learn. Like, he knows several languages. Like, normally footballers and managers are pretty good at picking up languages.
And he's unemployed right now.
Yeah,
he might well be learning. Like, if you're having like having immersion teaching, like you're in the country and you're having teaching every day, it's not difficult at all.
And we've seen managers do it before. They said Poch literally did not know a single word of English when he joined Southampton.
Yeah,
and that's all right now.
Did you see Luis Enrique recently?
He'd be brilliant at Manchester
Luis
United.
Enrique, I think it was like a Brazilian interviewer, and like in the same interview, just slipped seamlessly from like Spanish to Portuguese. Yeah, it was truly impressive. Yeah, maybe we should consider some national team managers. I mean, Gareth Southgate is the 5th favourite.
No.
Mancini, not a bad shout. Gareth Southgate's the 5th favourite. I mean, what would your reaction be if you woke up tomorrow and that had happened?
Just Ole Gunnar it's just Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Like, really,
so
maybe actually, I think Gareth may be a bit better tactically. I think he's a bit better tactically than
he cannot adjust in game.
Yeah,
but
neither can Ole.
He's one of the worst.
Neither can Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
No, but he's one of the worst in-game adjusters I've ever seen. Like Southgate, and I like the guy, but like he will always make substitutions in a game that make his team worse. Like, he's terrible at doing it. He's really, really bad. Like, yeah, Southgate is just. I don't get where they're getting that from. Like, what's the evidence he's better than Ole? Ole's perfectly fine. Like, Southgate might be rubbish at club level.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know.
It'd be a big risk. It'd be a big risk. And what United don't want is a big risk now. Like, they've got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They've got the risk here. Like, if you're going to keep going with the risk, just stay with.
They've got the safe pair of hands.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
to leave that, they need to go for a superstar manager, don't they? A few names have obviously already mentioned.
Wenger.
Get him out of FIFA.
I tell you what, Arsene Wenger would absolutely rip shit up with that squad. Do you not think? Like, I think that squad, he'd annihilate people. They'd win games 12-0. Like, he's perfect for them.
Well, it's interesting you mention that, 'cause the next section, I was just going to lay out how Ollie's been setting up and ask you to how you would change it, if so at all, like maybe personnel-wise, tactically speaking. I mean, he's played the 4-2-3-1 religiously, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And there has been times when Pogba and Matic have come into that double pivot. We saw it against Leicester. They were passed through very easily, as we mentioned before, like Samari and Tielemans were having a field day. But apart from that, it has been Greenwood, Fernandes, Pogba on the left, Ronaldo up top. Like, could he do anything right now, Ollie? Like maybe a different formation, maybe a different approach. He's not been the most tactically like fluid manager we've seen in the Premier League. Could he do? Oh, Henry Sport, big glass of water. We'll carry on. Could he do anything right now to change things? You know, in the next fortnight, Pat. Any dramatic changes that could happen in house?
Well, I think he's going to have to bring Fred in. Like, I mean, like that's something they're going to have to do, right? Like, you talked about how much like Bruno Fernandes is pressing. Well, Fred at least gives you a lot of that, and like, despite all his limitations, like, he's going to get around in the midfield. Like, he's going to be a problem. He sticks things up. Like, and against teams like Liverpool and Man City, they're going to need to gun things up in the centre of the park. I don't know, man. Like, I think that probably you want to find a way to play fewer forwards and more midfield types. Like, I would probably think about dropping guys like Greenwood, even though like he doesn't necessarily deserve it, but just because I think the side needs the balance. Like, you don't always drop people because they like deserve to be dropped. You drop them because the team isn't working. And so I think that maybe you could consider like a front two and like a diamond midfield, but I'm not sure they have somebody good enough to sit at the base and just pass. I think Matic just can't really be playing for them at this point. Like,
What about a three at the back?
I mean,
just thinking roughly, you could.
who's your right wing back then though? Because
it was Dalot.
Dalot, it would be Dalot.
Right, and so because you could,
and I was thinking Aaron Wan-Bissaka was the
Wan-Bissaka
right
side. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that makes sense. So it's more just like, okay, then you're putting like quite a significantly weaker player into your 11. I don't know, man. I'm not sure the three at the back is necessarily the right way to go. I think you've got good defenders for a four at the back. Like, I don't think that's the issue, but you've just got to find a way to like muddy up the centre of the pitch.
Yeah.
They don't have possession players. This is the thing about them. The reason we talk about them being good in games like against Man City or whatever is because they tend to do well in games that their talent lends itself well to. Not because Ollie's figured out something tactical, but because against like Man City, you're going to be like on the back foot and then playing counter-attacking into space kind of a lot. They have the right talent to do that. What we've never seen him do is build like a good possession team that can pick apart sides while remaining solid themselves. And they still don't have the talent to do that. They just don't have possession talent in that side. Like the centre of midfield is so weird, I can't get over it. Like, Fred can't pass, McTominay can't do anything. Like, every now and then people are like, McTominay's had a really good run of games, and it's always when he's scored goals, and I think that's the last thing that you need from that guy. Like, so it's just, I don't know, man. Like, sometimes I think, like, yeah, maybe you do get Lingard in here or whatever, even though he's significantly worse than some of their other attackers, because he's got a much better work rate, and he's going to at least understand what you want from him. And sometimes I think with this Man United team, it's one of those situations where, like, when a team has a player like Lucas Moura playing in the front line, people are like, what's he doing there? You can upgrade that position. But the reason he's there is because he makes the other players able to function by covering, like, their asses. Like, when they're just, like, wandering around waiting to score goals. If you've got a guy like Ronaldo up front, then you've got to find somebody who can cover for him. And that just means somebody has to sacrifice themselves for the team. And maybe that has to be Lingard. Maybe it will end up being Rashford. It's going to have to be somebody. And I just don't think you can build this team around Ronaldo. You should build it around Bruno. Bruno's your best player. Bruno is what made that team good. Like, they took a huge leap when he came in, and now they're trying to make their team function around Ronaldo. Ronaldo is worse than Bruno. Like, it is simple. It's as simple as that at this point.
And something I saw against Atalanta, which I think is a negative development for United's outlook for the rest of the season, is him and Rashford swapping positions. Like Rashford coming into the centre forward space and Ronaldo going out on the left. And I'm just thinking, if you're Luke Shaw, you know you can't bomb on the left hand side if Ronaldo's occupying in that space. There's going to be no overlap. There's going to be no underlap. And Luke Shaw was like a progressor in chief for United last season. So that's a negative development. Obviously makes him more porous down that side defensively speaking. And Rashford still prefer him coming off the left than pretending he's a centre forward. I mean, if you're going to play a back three, you'd have to sell like two attackers in January. Like Martial will be gone. I don't even know who else.
Martial should probably be gone already. To be quite honest.
I mean, there's just some players, good players, who are going to get no minutes, and like you said, not entirely fair or representative of their like ability or their effort or their application or whatever. I guess now would be a good time to sort of progress into who we would bring in to fix them, because that's traditionally where we go with this, right? I mean, we've been talking about DMs forever.
That's literally all they need. I genuinely believe, like, by two passing, defending midfielders and you're done. That's what you need.
Who would be at the top of your shopping list?
Well, we talked about Tchouaméni before. We talked about Bentancur before. I think they'd be interesting. They were rumoured to be interested in Ruben Neves. I think that would be fine, so long as you've got somebody next to him who is much more of a, like, destroyer. Yeah, but there was talk about Basuma. Basuma would have been great. And Ndidi's not much of a passer, but he's certainly good enough. Like, I don't know, that's all they need to do to me. Like, it doesn't even matter how, like, if these guys are like world beaters, just go out and buy two competent, like, DMs. That is it. Just do that. Go and get Tchouaméni, you might as well. And then, like, just find anybody else who works hard. Like, go and get Basuma next summer. Basuma and Tchouaméni, done. Like, that's all you need to do. Just sort your midfield. Like, it's so simple.
Do they keep Ollie then if they do that as well?
Well, I think it doesn't really matter if they keep Ollie in the sense that they'll get a lot better. But yeah, I mean, if you buy those players and you're like, look, we're trying to win the league, then at a certain point you've got to be like, is Ollie capable? We've upgraded every position. Like, the only position left to upgrade is the manager. Like, let's just do it. So I don't really care. Like, in the sense that, like, I think they can be better if they got a better manager now. But I also think they won't be good enough to win a major trophy until they upgrade those midfield slots. So they've got to do both, probably. But I would probably start with the midfield slots and see how much better you get.
Have you got any names that spring to the top of that curly head of yours?
I think we've mentioned the main ones, unless because they were even linked to Camavinga, who isn't necessarily an out-and-out DM, but would have been better.
He was a one
like
he
would, 17.
Yeah, exactly. But it would have been better than maybe what they've got now. Like I think that's the main thing. I think there's a few teams now that United have to be quick, because there'll be a few teams that will be thinking about doing this as well. Like N'Golo Kante can't go on forever at Chelsea. They'll have to start thinking about someone to kind of replace him. I know he's not necessarily an out-and-out DM either nowadays. He bombs forward a lot for Chelsea. But there's a few teams out there. Fernandinho can't keep going for City, even though they do have Rodri. They look to eventually replace him as well. And so, I think they're going to have to act quick. And the other thing as well is, for United, everyone knows they need a DM. So that's an extra 20, 15 million pounds they're going to have to be spending in the market. But
they were going to spend it anyway.
Exactly. No, precisely.
Anyway. Like because they always buy the guys who their men are buy. Like everyone's like, well, they have to buy Sancho, so they go and buy Sancho. So maybe they'll get lucky in the sense that now everyone thinks they need to buy Rice and Bellingham. So if they go and buy Rice and Bellingham, they're done. That's fine.
I mean,
that'll sort it.
Bellingham would, again, not an out-and-out DM, but he would be ridiculous. Declan Rice is that guy right now at the moment with the way it's being spoken about. He's being linked to Manchester United like there's no tomorrow. You're going to have to spend £80 million minimum next summer. If you're going to try and get him in January, West Ham aren't going to drop from their £100 million price tag. And I think they're just going to have to bite the bullet and do it and spend that money, because I don't see United being smart enough to go out there and buy the kind of guys that aren't necessarily the big names just yet, like Tchouaméni as you mentioned. Like United just aren't going to do that. They don't do that ever. Whereas Declan Rice is a guy that you can see them going out and spending that kind of money on. Will it happen in January? I'm not so sure. I don't know whether West Ham will be willing to let go of such a key player for them, whilst they're still doing pretty well in Europe as well and battling for it, and also battling in the league as well. But it's something that if they want to try and change things mid-season, they have to go out and do in a couple of months' time. Yeah,
I think it's a really good point, that sort of gold rush for a DM, because a lot of top sides, apart from probably Liverpool with Fabinho, particularly in the Premier League, if we're thinking on these shores, are going to be looking at players like Tchouaméni, and to me that feels like a much more Manchester City acquisition. But Declan Rice this season, I feel like is becoming the sort of player that looks like the solution for Manchester United. So, I mean, a couple of years ago, it was kind of his defensive numbers that were decent, then his distribution numbers kind of picked up.
He's getting better season on season.
Yeah,
he's
and now
really
I think he's becoming less of the right player for United.
Now he looks all
action.
coming
more box to box.
I think if they want a defensive player, he's probably not the one. But as that other player, he is the legs that they need. They need someone a little bit more disciplined to sit in alongside him, maybe, because he is becoming a number 8. Like he's gone from is he a centre back or a centre mid? To is he a 6 or an 8? He looks like a really good box to box midfielder. So that's an interesting conundrum as well. But I mean, if they signed Bellingham and Rice, that's just like legs United. That is just pure engine.
And then that would be interesting. Like if you got Conte and you've then got a way to kind of switch between a 3 at the back and and a 4 at the back. That would be kind of interesting for them. But the problem with people being interested in someone like Rice is that because Rice has developed into more, you're essentially going to have to go and pay 100 mil for a player, and then you're going to use only sort of 50 million worth of his talent, because you're going to be playing a guy who can do lots of things, and that's why he costs 100 mil as a straight up DM. And if he were only that, he'd cost 50. So it just seems like you always end up in this position with Man United where they're like, let's go and sign this guy who can do loads and loads of different things and make him do just one thing. I'd be
very interested as well whether Declan Rice can handle the pressure per se. Very much easier to play well for West Ham, and if you do lose, sometimes it can be expected. Whereas stepping into that Manchester United thing, where you are also now the solution to all of their problems, and if it continues or you have a bad game or whatever happens, I'd be interested. But that's
do you think the England experience will help him with that? Because I mean,
for sure,
important
100%. And again, it's more of a per se, not there's no factual evidence behind that. He can't handle that pressure because every stage that he's taken to, he's gone.
Do you mean will expectations be out of alignment with what he could do for United? He's not the final piece of the puzzle. Much like Ronaldo is an extra piece to the puzzle. You're where the fuck did this piece come from? This is not this puzzle. But
no, precisely. Again, it's not necessarily. There's not really a point that I'm making, from being quite honest here. It's just whether it's something that would be very interested to see whether he can deal with that.
If he was the only signing, I get what you're saying. If he's the only signing, you would be like, okay, but then where's Wilfred Ndidi? Would you sign Wilfred Ndidi? I mean, I suppose my question now, it doesn't matter if Pogba leaves at the end of the season. If they got someone like Wilfred Ndidi, who is well capable of putting up 7 tackles and interceptions a game, could you then play Pogba next to him as that distributor from deep? Like
he played for France.
Pogba.
He played next to N'Golo Kante, and that partnership between a DM, because that's where N'Golo played more so for France, and Pogba worked really well. I mean, they won the World Cup with it. Like, it's not a bad thing to do. So I mean, evidence suggests that he did. I mean, who did he play next to for Juventus, or was it in a 3 midfield?
He played with Vidal and Pirlo.
Okay,
He also played
it's a little bit different. But I mean, yeah, as a 2, the evidence suggests that when he's next to a world class DM, he is better. I mean, again, international football was slightly different to club football.
That was a very conservative France
you
side.
Can't quite compare it exactly, and it's
so boring.
Yeah,
although Ollie and
context.
Deschamps have produced some very similar football on occasions.
I think Ollie's a better manager than Deschamps.
I couldn't rate Deschamps any lower. He won the World Cup.
I think he's an absolutely garbage manager. But yeah, I mean, like, I think you'd have more of a chance of that working. But I don't think it matters. I think Pogba's going in the summer, so
which might help them out slightly.
And I think it really depends what your front line is. Like, I think that if you've got Rashford, Bruno and Sancho there, and those guys are all pressing and everyone's covering for Ronaldo, and then you've got like whoever next to Ndidi, I think that's probably okay. Like, especially if you keep Wan-Bissaka in reserve, you're probably all right. Like, you've always got 3 back. Like, there's definitely a way to do it. You look at the way that like Marseille are setting up this season under Sampaoli, and you think, right, okay, well, you've kind of got this system where you've got 3 centre-backs and then you've got 2 central midfielders who really are just DMs. All those guys just sit, essentially, and the rest attack. I think that would work fine. If those guys were like Varane, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Ndidi, and one more, I think you've probably got enough defence in the side to be able to like cut through most teams, and there's certainly enough attack to sort it out. So yeah, probably.
And they're good at stepping out. Varane, Maguire, like you don't
incredibly rangy, like as a back line.
You don't need like an excellent ball playing DM if your defenders are like Harry Maguire, who's brilliant at splitting the lines on occasion. Anyway. Yeah, fit one. I did like it after the Leicester game when Ollie was like, up there big time. Should not have started him. I mean, United's squad, it is interesting that I imagine Ronaldo's played a big part in this, has got in the 3 years that Ollie's been there 3 years older. So I'm sort of thinking about the squad that the next manager is inheriting. It's average age of around 27 and a bit, I think. And there's 28 players in the squad, so you would have to cull some players, right? Because that is far too many. So who would you sell, and who is still going to be useful? I mean, Lingard's probably the most interesting place to start.
Yeah, I mean, right? you've still got players like Juan Mata and these guys who just haven't really got a place here at Manchester United. I think, yeah, as you said, Jesse Lingard is the most interesting. He is a great squad player.
Yeah.
But I think his contract ends at the end of this season. If I'm correct,
I'm not sure.
Because I think there's a lot of talk about him signing a new deal.
Right.
He's expensive as a squad player as well.
Yeah, precisely. And whether I mean, United just may not have the option, because for himself, he probably wants to be playing football. After that 6 months at West Ham, he proved to the Premier League that he's still a Premier League player, a quality player, and a good one at that as well. But I mean, he'd also probably, I don't know the ins and outs, like only he will know, but you'd assume he would have had the options. He would have been given options to maybe leave Manchester United.
Newcastle are better the chat, mate. Big time.
You go, yeah. But so the fact that he stayed maybe shows that, okay, he believes that he can play a role in this United squad. And I think as a squad player, he's fine, but an expensive one at that. I just, again, for the next manager, is the next manager going to use Jesse Lingard? Probably
I suppose
not.
if they had a sporting director, it might be easier to answer, right? Because a sporting director might be like, listen, if a new manager comes in, Jesse provides 2 or 3 solutions, and can play in different systems, it might be worth keeping him. But with United, you kind of think, right, they've spent so much, they're probably not going to be thinking that way. If Newcastle are like, here's 20 mil for Lingard, it's like, he's on his way, right? Is there anyone that you think has been like underused, or anyone that you just like ship out straight away?
What about Donny van der Beek?
Is there any surprising candidates?
Donny van der Beek.
I know, bless him.
I mean, I wouldn't mind keeping Donny van der Beek, except that I don't think that he's going to be a regular starter for them. But maybe he plays in some of their like weaker matches. But if a decent offer came in for Donny, I'd sell him. I'd sell Martial. I'd be happy to sell McTominay, Fred. Like, definitely, if you can get rid of Mata and Matic, do that. Like, there's a lot of players who I'd just like happily move on. I think with Henderson, like, as much as you want to keep Henderson, if you're not going to play him, sell him for a big profit, like, and improve the team now. Like, if you go past those 2 starting centre backs, it gets pretty thin pretty quickly. I don't really like their backup fullbacks. You know, like I just think that I would use that stuff to like recalibrate the squad. And if you end up selling somebody who you regret a bit later on, then you regret it a bit later on. Like, but you're Man United, you can go and spend a fortune. You don't care.
Nice. Okay, let's wrap up this section then. The two players, we did this for the How to Fix Newcastle, I guess, just for a bit of continuity. We might have done 2 or 3. 2 players who you'd sign above all others. You don't have to worry about selling players or how much they cost, you know, within reason. Who you going for?
Wilfred Ndidi and Declan Rice.
Whole new double pivot, I love it.
I mean, that would do it. Right, but I might go for Basuma over maybe Rice, just because I think he'll be half the price, and I'm not convinced he's that much worse. And I don't think homegrown players are going to be an issue for them over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean they're pretty. I think we're going to be pretty similar in our thinking, keeping it double pivot based.
I mean,
They should have just got Partey when Arsenal got Partey.
Yeah.
That would have improved them so much.
I mean,
instead of Donny, they had the money. They spent it on Donny.
if we had the option to sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer right now, and the ideal and it is and Conte is there,
Or was it down?
or Zidane, would you say yes?
We're the sporting director here,
Yeah.
so that shouldn't change our thinking player wise because we're not.
No, not player wise. I'm just thinking right now.
Well, it does have to a little
Ole
bit,
can
right?
go, and you've got Zidane coming in.
I for Zidane personally, I think I would just keep as is.
Okay.
If the only other option was Zidane, what about you boys?
I'd do it for Zidane, but the decision's much easier if it's Conte. If it's Conte, I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
we get it. Though I actually think the squad is not
the
well
right-
set up.
Yeah.
Oh, unless it, though I imagine it would be like Jesse Lingard right wing back
Okay.
or something. I think that'd be kind of fun.
What about yourself?
There's a lot of similarities between Frank Lampard and Chelsea, you know, in this situation. But the difference was we had Thomas Tuchel coming in.
And your squad was a lot better balanced.
Yeah, very
this.
true. Right now,
Oh, come on.
I do it. Yeah, I do it. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
I'm probably going to cheat a little bit. I'll probably go. I'm bringing in Pochettino at the end of the season.
Sure.
I'm going to go for Tchouaméni, and I'll be happy with. Bloody hell! I mean, if you don't need Wilfred Ndidi if Tchouaméni's coming in. Tchouaméni's going to be cheaper than Wilfred Ndidi. I'm going for. I think Rice, just because it will happen. I think United won't even ask the new manager if they want Rice.
No,
They'll just be
it's
like,
just
"We
done.
bought Rice. It happened."
Enjoy.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to quick fire questions then.
Nice.
We'll do one. We've got this one from Sadio Propaganda. Okay, very apt. Is Sadio Mane the best left winger in the league this season?
Who else is that?
He didn't have the best of seasons last season. No, I'm just thinking. I'm just trying to think.
Grealish is playing as a left winger.
Grealish was up there. I'm trying to think who else plays left wing in this team. Rashford's just come back. He features slightly on the left.
He's playing on the left of Brentford. Can you?
Burmo?
Yeah,
Doesn't Burmo play on the left?
No, he plays on the right.
Right,
More
yeah.
he's left third, right?
I think what Chelsea's is Kai Havertz at times. I mean, fuck knows.
Should we just go? Yeah.
Yeah, why not?
All right,
Screw
cool.
it.
Sadio Propaganda's got that one in the bag.
Can't think of anyone else.
And
Who's playing on the left? Who's playing on the left for West Ham? It's normally
Fornals?
Fornals, but it hasn't been. Fornals kind of plays a 10.
Benrahma?
Plays a bit there.
Give it to Mane.
where's Vlasic?
Yeah, I
gonna-
mean, it's still going to be Mane.
Yeah,
I just
well,
wanted to
Vlasic's
see.
just more like attacking midfield, isn't he? What? Jared Bowen plays on the right or at centre forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's West Ham.
Yeah, I'll give it.
Turns
I'll
out
give
we
it
don't
Mane.
know anything
Yeah,
about Premier
I'll
League.
give it
Yeah,
Mane.
cool, Mane it is. And the personal question comes from Siva Akil this week. And favourite shows of 2021, Siva wants to know. What have you been binging on this year?
I mean, I always go back to the American Office, but that's like I've watched that for a few years now. The Morning Show season 2 is pretty good.
yeah, you and Joe
haven't checked it out.
rave about the morning show.
Shows like Apple TV. Oh, like they don't do many
Okay.
shows, but some of them they do. They do
slap.
very, very well.
I've
Ted
not
Lasso,
watched Ted Lasso yet. Any good?
it's cringe. Like
Right, okay.
it is cringe, but it's like it's a heartwarming. Like it's nice, it's lovely. If you need a little bit of something, and you want to see something about football, like give it a watch. I've been watching season 3 of You. I'll be honest, lads. Give it a miss. Like, watch it if you want to continue the story, but like it's not as good as 1 and 2. It's practically the same, to be quite honest. Same premise.
Still killing people.
Trying to think exactly. Trying to think what else I've been watching. Anyone else can jump in at any
Yeah, I was
point.
going to say you're well into this question. Pat,
So it has to be stuff that came out this year. Jesus
do you want
Christ.
to buy some more time?
There's season 2 of Dave. That's out at the moment. That's really good.
That is
Dave.
great. You never, with,
Little
Little
Dickies,
Dicky.
like
Oh, no.
It's really good.
it's really good.
very, very good. It's on the
yeah.
BBC.
Okay.
Check it out.
A weird destination for little...
No,
BBC for
no, it's an
Liverpool.
FX show.
Oh,
But
it's
on,
okay,
yeah.
they've been BBC
Okay.
bought the rights.
That's really good. The latest season of Sex Education was okay. I enjoyed it.
I've not finished that yet.
Squid Game was obviously really good.
Oh shit! Yeah, I think Squid Game probably takes it for me.
I don't know what else. What else there's
Though
been
I
this year?
did
It's
watch
hard.
it with English dubbed.
That's mental.
Shocking from you.
Money
Season-
Heist season 4 is very good. Oh, yeah, very good. Again,
Heist
English
is so
dubbed.
bad.
I'm trying to think when
You
season-
don't like Money Heist?
Yeah, it's not good. I realise that every teenager on Twitter thinks it's like the greatest show ever. But
I would say the greatest show ever, but like
whatever.
it's.
Don't let him condescend you.
No,
Stick up for Money
it's
Heist.
whatever.
Because I also agree that it's probably not the greatest show ever, but I very much enjoy Money Heist.
Yeah,
Or
that's
how's
fine.
it said in Spanish?
That's fine. I don't even know what the title is in Spanish.
Oh, okay, I thought you'd have that.
I'm going to go for... I watched season 2 of Succession this year. And it was actually a
Great.
bit of a slow burner, but by the end, it's
I
some
just
of the
started
most
that,
So good.
delectable TV. I'm like licking my
Isn't season 3
lips at
just
the
come
end
out?
of it.
The new episode, the first episode of season 3 has just
Yeah.
come out this
Ball
week.
on the floor.
I haven't watched that episode yet.
Iconic.
I've just started that, like literally like halfway through episode 1.
And
Ball on the
Macaulay
floor,
Culkin's brother. What's his first name?
Rory Culkin.
Is it
He's got a bunch of brothers. He's got Kieran Culkin, Rory Culkin.
It's Kieran in
Which one is
Succession,
it?
and
Okay.
he's absolutely brilliant in it. So yeah, I really enjoy Succession. Get stuck into
Matthew McFadden's amazing in it. Like him and cousin
Greg.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're just
what,
like
Tom and
that.
Greg?
That little relationship is so amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's genuinely really really good.
I feel like we're missing a big
And
one.
it's just everyone's a piece of shit in it. It's so good.
Yeah.
Piece of shit.
Yeah, it's one of those shows where it's just like, look how awful all these rich
Like-
people
oh,
are.
like
and
what's-
every now and then, like you'll start to almost like one of the characters, and as soon as you feel that, the show like tells you,
Like
no, this person,
like
this person's-
Entourage.
No, I think no. The problem with Entourage is they think those
Oh.
people are cool.
Oh no, they all, yeah, but that's what I came away from just thinking.
Yeah, the people making Entourage think they're cool.
Oh, okay,
Like,
okay,
whereas
okay.
in Succession, like it's absolutely unequivocal. These
Oh,
guys
okay,
suck.
okay.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
Succession.
impossible to American Psycho it, where you end up with like people who are just like, oh yeah, like these people are so, or like The Wolf of Wall Street, where people are like, I want to be like the Wolf of Wall Street. It's like the fucking wife beating, coke
Absolute
snorting
twat,
maniac.
yeah.
Well, what a note to end Sunday Vibes on. If you've got any alternate suggestions for us, stick them in the comments below, because I feel like this debate could be an episode in itself, which is kind of what it always...
No, because we've just forgotten everything. It's just
yeah,
like, did
I feel
that?
like I should go on
I May
Netflix
Destroy You
account
came
and
out
just see if
last year. Like,
I was about to start again then. I started watching Midnight Mass recently. I wouldn't bother with it. It's just like
never heard of
a
it.
constant barrage of monologues.
It's on
I wouldn't
Netflix,
bother.
I think.
Yeah, don't bother. Go and watch something on Football Daily or Football Daily instead.
just go and watch I May Destroy You from last year. Like that was like the best show that's come out in the last 4 or 5 years. Like basically since Fleabag ended, that's probably the best show that's been on TV.
Well, I told you what happened with that, didn't I? I watched the first episode and the last episode
That
as
must
the,
have
as
been
the
an
second
an
episode.
interesting experience.
Yeah, so it completely ruined it for me.
It's
It's
so
my
good,
my
though.
girlfriend's fault. Anyway, bye.
Bye.